haftarah. We're going to start with the haftarah, and then we'll go to the regular Torah.
Sure you are.
We might not discuss the whole regular Torah portion because of the time constraints, but we'll cut it down a little bit. But like I said, for this cycle, we wanted to add something that we hadn't done before and expand it a bit. So.
Does anyone have a background who Isaiah was?
Interesting, because Gary, if you slide this down,
at the top, it talks about. Here, wait a second. Yeah, there it is.
The passage, unknown author, often referred to Deutero-Isaiah, addressed to people who had for decades lived as exiles in Babylon in the 6th century BCE. The prophet preached unwavering trust in a God who would surely restore Israel to its homeland. Well, I guess he knew that. With the lyrical poetry and rich imagery, this prophecy proclaims God's absolute sovereignty. The same God who created heaven and earth. Verse 5, the connection with the Sidra. It is also one who created the people of Israel to be a covenant people, a light to the nations.
Nice. And also they have I think this book of Isaiah, they found this in the Qumran caves, like an old ancient version of it. And it was very closely related. There wasn't much out of place. So they built a museum around it in Israel. And it's one of the most fascinating things. You can read every chapter in Isaiah in Hebrew. And this is one of the things that Shalom said he couldn't believe, because he's reading these words from thousands of years ago. And it's striking, I guess, if you're really a native Hebrew speaker.
What I thought is interesting about the haftarah too is, I was reading about like how, when did we start reading the haftarah? And it really, a lot of it came from periods where Jews weren't allowed to study the Torah scroll. Like that was prohibited, the 5 books, but the books of the prophets weren't. Like that wasn't that was something I read. It wasn't the Torah, you know what I mean? The 5 books, the scroll. So that's when they used to focus on studying more of the prophets and stuff. Just throw that out there.
Interesting. Yeah. Who would like to read? Cynthia?
You're audible. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
You can hear me?
We can hear you.
God, the one who created the heavens and stretched them out, who made the earth and all that grows in it, who gives breath to its people and spirit to all who walk in it. I, the have called you in righteousness and taken you by the hand. I am the one who created you and made you a covenant people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes of the blind, to bring the captive to confinement, those who sit in darkness. I am the eternal. My name. I will not share my glory with another, my praise with idols. My earlier promises have come to pass, and now I tell you new things.
I think your audio is having some problems, Cynthia, but we kind of got through it.
And it's funny because I don't know if you can hear me. My daughter checked this this weekend, and she said that my sound is up as high as it can be. So I don't know. I guess it needs somebody to take a look at this situation. I'm sorry.
We lose several of your words.
Pardon?
We lose several of your words as you're reading. They just disappear.
Oh, no, I'll have to have someone come in and take a look at the situation.
Yeah. Maybe it is up too high too. That's the other thing. Computers are weird. Every computer is slightly different, and it's really it does get frustrating.
I don't know. I've done everything. I know this seems to be a problem, but I'll see what can be done. In the meantime, I'll be an observer and a listener instead of an active participant.
We heard you loud and clear that time.
Yeah.
Ernie, you want to pick it up at the top?
Where are we? Where do you want me to start from?
Right
Number
from the
10,
top.
right?
Yeah.
What, before they appear? I tell you of them? Is this where sing a new song?
Yep. Shir Ladonai Shechadash. There it is. Right there.
Okay. I thought Cynthia had read that. She didn't. All right. Sing a new song to the eternal. Sing God's praise, all the earth. Let the sea roar and all it contains. You coastlands and all who live there. Let the wilderness and its towns rejoice, and villagers of Kedar in their settlements. Let those who live in Selah sing out and shout from the mountaintops. Let them give honor to the eternal and praise God in the coastlands. The eternal goes out like a warrior, like a soldier in fury, ready for battle, shouting and roaring to prevail over the foe. Long enough have I held my peace. I have kept still and held myself back. Now I cry out like a woman in labor. I pant and I gasp. I will destroy mountains and hills, dry up their grass and their trees. I will turn the riverbeds into desert land and empty their pools of water. I will lead the blind by roads they do not know and guide them along roads they have not traveled. I will turn their darkness into light and make straight their twisting ways. These things will I do. I will not forgo them. All who trust in idols and call metal things their gods shall fall back in shame. More?
Please.
Listen, you deaf ones, you sightless, look and see. Who is as blind as my servant, as deaf as my own messenger? Who is as blind as the one whose heart is whole, as blind as the servant of the eternal? Seeing a lot, you notice not. Your ears are open, yet you do not hear. The eternal delights for righteousness' sake to make the teaching glorious and great. But now this people has been plundered and despoiled, trapped in holes, all of them, and immured in dungeons. They are spoiled, and no one comes to save them. They are plundered, and no one says, give it back. Who among you will listen to this? Who, listening, will take heed for the time to come? Who allowed Jacob to be plundered? Who gave Israel to the despoilers? It was none other than the eternal against whom they sinned, in whose ways they would not walk, to whose teaching they would not listen. Therefore, God poured out on them venomous wrath and violent war. It burned all around them, and they failed to understand. It scorched them, yet they did not take it to heart. Now, thus says the Eternal One, your creator, O Jacob, your maker, O Israel, have no fear, for I will redeem you. I have called you by name. You are mine. That's kind of scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, he's really angry, except now he's forgiving them. Because when you pass through waters, I'm with you. When you pass through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be scorched. The flame shall not consume you. For I, the Eternal, am your God, the Holy One of Israel, your deliverer. I give Egypt as ransom for you, Ethiopia and Saba in exchange for you, because you are precious to me and honored, and I love you. I give up peoples and nations in exchange for your life. Have no fear, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east. I will gather you in from the west. To the north, I will say, give back, and to the south, do not hold back. Bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth, all who are called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Bring forth this people. Amen. This is killing me.
For over 40 years.
Jeepers. This
He's
is,
doing great.
I'm drained after this. How come he did such a 180 in this?
Right. He's calling out the blind, but then he wants to bring everybody back home.
Yeah.
Right?
In the
Telling
same-
everybody that they have to follow God's rules. If you follow God's rules, then everything changes around, cause and effect.
Oh, he really, no, if I had been listening to all this, it would petrify me. I don't know how they even thought of doing the wrong thing. I mean, this is scary.
But
That's
isn't
the
it
idea.
isn't
Yeah.
it hopeful as well? Because if you think about
Yeah,
Isaiah writing from Babylon and everyone wants to go back to
yeah,
Israel, Jerusalem, and it's like here's the prophecy of you are going to go back after Babylon, but of course everyone today is reading it. Well, 1948 came, and yes,
oh,
they're
right.
back. So
So
it's twice.
it's almost like God, it threatens you and gets angry at you, but if you follow everything, you come back to him, he forgives you. Is that the message we get?
I think that's a great message. Bye, Dr.
So
Ed.
do I. Yep. I
Oh,
believe
yes,
that
you
cause
do.
and effect, and it's
That's it.
interesting too. How the haftarah, the theme of the haftarah, is related somehow, obviously, to the regular, the weekly Torah portion. And so here we start out like Isaiah's talking about God created the heaven and the earth and the
Right.
expanse, but it looks like he also ties in the fact that like God created the earth, but created us, the children of Israel, to fulfill the covenant. It's like we were created for that purpose, like to be that light to the.
Right, to the nations.
Yeah, and he talks about like taking the blind,
Mm.
places they haven't been. I think that's more metaphorical, right?
Oh, I just found this whole thing very draining. I mean, if somebody was talking to me like that, I would do everything they said. Of course I'll do. I'll follow you to the ends of the earth. How
Maybe
could they
that's the
not?
point.
that
Maybe
is
that's the
that
point.
that is part of the point.
No.
It's fire and brimstone, baby. You
Yeah,
know me, I love fire and brimstone.
it's true. It gets your attention and it keeps it riveted.
Yeah.
It rivets you.
Yep.
Should
I
I go
mean,
on? I could
feel it.
probably go on.
Yeah.
And you were at 8, right?
I
My
don't know. I'm
daughter, or 7. My daughters bring my sons from afar, my daughters from the ends of the earth. All who are called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. Bring forth this people, once blind, who now have eyes, once deaf, who now have ears. Let all the nations come together. Let all the peoples assemble. Who among them can explain this? Who foretold this to us? Let them bring witnesses and be proved right, that all may say, it is true. You are my witnesses, says the Eternal One, my servant, who I have chosen. Know me, therefore, and put your trust in me, and understand that I am the one. Echad, Echad, there it is. Before me no God was formed, and after me none shall be. Be sure that I am the eternal God, and I alone can deliver you.
Anochi Anochi Adonai ve'en mebaladi Moshiach.
Moshiach.
That's number 11.
Is Isaiah the longest book? I mean, the biggest book?
I think it's pretty long. Yeah, it's a pretty big book. It's this was 40. Yeah, chapter 43. There's a lot of it's a lot.
Right.
It's like one of those books like the Book of Revelation where it has a lot of visions. He has a lot of visions. There's a part in it in the beginning of it where he has a heavenly vision, like he's in heaven.
And I always think of Isaiah as a peaceful prophet, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Well, I think Christians look at him also as kind of showing the way of Christ, like they look into it from that perspective. In fact, Handel's Messiah. Have you heard that?
Right. Of course.
Yep. They've
It's beautiful.
right. Who wrote it? Was it Bach? Mozart? I forget, but they use Isaiah's words in that body of work. It's kind of amazing how much of Isaiah they pull out to talk about the coming of Christ. So it's a hopeful passage, I think, overall, because like you say, it's really like, ooh, where's this going,
I know.
But
I
I
have a
think
question. Does anybody think that this is made up of, I mean, that there's really more than one Isaiah making this thing up? I mean, is this all due to one or more than one who go under the name Isaiah?
That's a really good question. I would have to look that up. I don't know.
I don't know where you find it.
Maybe
in the context of the times, like that Isaiah was preaching, like I mean, they were exiled, and they were, supposedly, like, it was at a time when people were just totally ignoring and just not, they had really strayed. And, like there again, he got, who was it that gave away the land? Well, God did, because,
Yeah.
but then he does say that, if, when you follow, praise God's name and
Right.
then God will return. It's always like that, though. It's the cause and effect. If you do this,
Right.
if you choose door number 1, this happens. If you choose door number 2, it's that simple.
Right.
Do
And
we
that's
have
really
a period of time, Gary? Is there can we pinpoint this as?
That was about, I think, about 600 BC. It was around 600, maybe 605 or so BC.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I read too. Yeah, it's intense
A long
stuff.
time. I wasn't even born then. This stuff happened before my
Are you
time,
sure?
man.
I mean,
And I know I'm getting old. But,
incarnated.
yeah.
Maybe you were Isaiah and you didn't know it.
There you go. There you go.
Although I
Looks
mean,
like Annie's having a
Michael
tough
looks
time
more like
connecting.
Isaiah. Michael, you look more like you would have been an Isaiah.
I'll take it, Myrna.
There you go.
Thank you. We lost
that
Cynthia
look.
too. We lost Cynthia. People are dropping out like
And Annie's having trouble, it looks like, connecting.
Wow.
She
Wow.
can't get connected.
And Alba's in the room too. She's over there listening in. She's here.
Alba!
She's present.
Hi, Gary.
Alba, what's happening, baby?
Not much.
What it is.
Sorry to hear about Annie's son's grandfather.
Yeah, Annie's son's grandfather passed
Yep.
away.
Oh, we did?
That is her ex-father-in-law, I think is.
Oh,
how
her,
it is.
oh.
That's
I
right.
was thinking of her father rather than father-in-law. How is he doing?
Her father's not very well. Slowly.
So the kid's going to lose both on both sides of the family.
Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. I mean, it's sad anyway, but it's like a double whammy.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Who wants to start the beginning?
Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tehom. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Keep it
Hey,
going.
No,
The
you
water.
have very
V'ruach
fluent.
Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim. Vayomer Elohim ye'ihu vayahi or. Vayar Elohim et haor ki tov. God saw that it was good. Vayavdel Elohim bein haor uvein hachoshech. Vayikra Elohim laor yom, day. God called the light day. Vilachoshech kara. Then the dark, night.
Night.
Lila. Vayahi erev, there was evening. Vayahi voker, there was morning. Yom echad. Vayomer Elohim yehi rekia betoch hamayim vihi mivdil bein mayim. I'm telling you, I'm like a Hebrew scribe, No.
Yeah. Mayim is water.
Yeah.
Oh,
Eretz-
let's provide the
Eretz.
water from the water, right?
Hamayim v'haaretz, or the sky,
Yeah.
like, wait a second, divided the light from the darkness, the or from the choshech, and the in the evening, the morning, and the first day. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's
This
good.
is all
It's
repeated
good.
all through the Saturday morning service then, right? All these.
They want to make sure you got it.
Yep.
Annie, how are you?
Hi, sweetie pie.
Hi.
You finally got connected. Took you a long time to get connected.
Oh, I was trying to switch over my laundry.
Ah, all right, baby. Cool. Did you want me to continue in English or?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, so I already read the first chapter. This first part
First
I already
paragraph.
read. So I'll start at number 6. God then said, let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it divide water from water. So God made the expanse, separating the waters beneath the expanse from the waters above the expanse, and so it was. God then called the expanse sky, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day. Vayikra Elohim l'rakia shamayim, vayehi erev, vayehi boker yom sheni, day 2. Okay. God then said, let the waters beneath the sky be collected in one place, so that the dry ground may be seen, and so it was. And God called the dry ground earth, and called the collected waters seas. And when God saw how good it was, God said, let the earth grow vegetation, seed-bearing plants, fruit trees on the earth that bear fruit, each true to its type, with its seed in it. And so it was. The earth brought forth vegetation, seed-bearing plants, each true to its type, and trees bearing fruit, each true to its type, with its seeds in it. And God saw how good it was, and there was evening and there was morning, a third day, or Yom Shlishi. Okay, God then said, let there be lights in the expanse of the sky to separate day from night, to be markers for sacred seasons, for days in years. And to be lights in the expanse of the sky, spilling light upon the earth, and so it was. Thus God made the two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night, and the stars. God set them in the sky's expanse to spill light upon the earth, to govern the day and the night, to separate the light from the darkness. And God saw how good it was, and there was evening and there was morning, a fourth day.
Do you notice something? Okay. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Yom Revi'i, a fourth day, Yom Revi'i.
I was just going to say, do you notice how this translation is interesting? It says, talks about spilling light. The light will spill, which is more of a watery phrase, right? It's kind of neat to hear that. I don't know. It's very poetic, and it makes me think of how I look at light. I've been like fascinated by light, of course, sunsets, sunrises. And so I think that's an awesome way to look at it. Spilling light, just spill it out.
So maybe it was a comet that came through too, that was spilled.
Oh, could have been. Yeah, could have been.
That's spilled light.
That's right.
Expanse of the sky, Rakia Hashamayim. Okay. Do you want me to keep reading, or?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
God then said, let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let the birds fly over the earth, across the face of the expanse of the sky. God then formed the great sea monsters and every living creature that creeps, with which the waters swarm, all true to their types, and every winged bird, each true to its type. And God saw how good it was. God then blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, fill the waters of the seas, and let the birds multiply in the earth. And there was evening and there was morning, a fifth day, Yom Hamishi, God then said, let the earth bring forth living creatures of every type, domestic animals and creeping things, and wild animals, each true to its type. And so it was. Thus God made the wild animals, each true to its type, and the domestic animals, each true to its type, and every creature that creeps on the ground, each true to its type. And God saw how good it was. Elohim ne'aseh Adam b'tzelem. Okay. God said, let us make human beings in our image. I like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? And there, Vayome, right? Vayome Elohim ne'aseh Adam b'tzelenu kedmuntenu v'yirdu v'igdat hayom uve'of hashamayim uvabhema uvechel haaretz. God said, let us make human beings in our image after our likeness, and let them hold sway over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, over the beasts, over all the earth and all that creeps upon the earth. So God created the human beings in the divine image, creating them in the image of God, creating them male and female. God then blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and tame it, hold sway over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, and over every animal that creeps on the earth." And God said, "Look, I have given you all the seed-bearing plants on the face of the earth, and every tree that has in its seed-bearing fruit. These are yours to eat. And to every land animal, and to every bird of the sky, and to all that creeps on the earth, in which is the breath of life, I give all green vegetation for food." And so it was. God then surveyed
It's
all that
like,
God had
excuse
made.
me, it's sort of a rehash of Genesis, but not exactly the same.
It is Genesis.
No,
It
but
is
it's not
Genesis.
exactly. I'll tell you why it isn't exactly the same. Several years ago, when Rabbi Kudan, we were in Willowdale, and he came and did a brief service. This was during Rosh Hashanah, before he went back to the regular temple. And one of the things in Genesis, God says, God saw that it was good, and a few places one place he doesn't say anything, but the next day, it was a Tuesday, he says, and God saw that it was very good, and he repeated that. And the reason I remember that so distinctly is that my mother always said, if you're going to do something, do it on a Tuesday. And we never could figure out why. She said it had something to do with the Torah, but she knew that that was a lucky day. And as I said to Rabbi, it took me like, I don't know, 25 years or something, or more than that, to finally find out why that Tuesday was such a good day. It's because, and God saw it was good twice, he said it. So
I
that's
remember.
why,
I remember him talking about that.
do you?
So
Yep.
that was the third day? Is that the third
No.
day?
I don't remember him talking about it at Willowdale because I wasn't there, but I remember
No,
him
but I
talking
was
about it
there,
at the temple.
and I said to him, I said, you cleared up something that I've had like all my life, and we never could figure out why Tuesday was such a good luck day. And she always said that. So if you were going to pass papers, if you passed papers on something on Tuesday, it was a good luck day. But that was why. So I noticed that it doesn't say it the same way here that it did in
Can you
Genesis.
go back to the third day, Gary? Go back
Yeah,
to.
let's see.
Let's take a peek. I'm interested.
Let's see.
The third day, there was the
All right,
13th.
so-
Yeah. So down here it would be like
Water under the sky.
Yeah.
called.
For ground, land, and
You really have to go. Genesis does say it, though. I mean, it specifically says, and God saw that it was very good.
Okay.
And one day he doesn't even say it was good.
Right. And God saw how good it was. All right. That was the third day.
But it's all part of Genesis. It just might be that
Right.
on one particular day it
But
doesn't.
it's written differently.
Right.
God saw how good.
And maybe the Hebrew was the same. I don't know.
And you know what's interesting? Everything that you see, like I was thinking this the other day, God was pleased at everything that it created. But then after a while, it was like, oh God, I wish I didn't create humans now. You know, after all that, like just as you're getting ready to study Noah, like it's just like at the beginning of creation, and already God's like, you know, but it doesn't say that God doesn't say to himself, why didn't I realize this before? Like, you know, I made these meshuggahs. I knew what I was making, and now they're meshuggahs, and I'm pissed off at them. It's just kind of weird, you know?
Hey, don't you find it strange that you don't hear very much about the other one? What was the other guy's name? The Seth or something? Is that the one? There were 3 children that God created.
Seth was the child that they had after Cain, after
Cain slew Abel. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about the first female that he made? That I forget her name. That was evil.
Begins with an L. You're supposed to not say it.
Lilith.
Yeah.
Lilith. That's it.
Some people get
Don't hear
freaky.
anything more about Lilith.
Yeah.
Don't hear very much about Lilith.
I think that's in the Talmud. I think.
Is it?
I think so, because I don't think there's any talk of it here. I don't think. Oh, unless they say that there's 2 creation stories, and then the second one we hear about Eve, because yes. So that's how they kind of they bring these 2 together. That the first, when God creates man and woman, he creates Adam with Lilith as equals, and somehow it didn't work out with Lilith.
Yeah.
And so he had to
Is that
create
the first
Eve.
divorce?
It might have been. It might have been. I don't know it that well. I mean, I'm just kind of paraphrasing what
No, I know,
the
but
foggiest thing that I remember about
nobody
it.
really picks up on it. It just gets mentioned except in a negative way.
Right. Yeah, because there are men and women. It says we created men and women as humans, as the image of God, and then we get into there was just a man, right? Then he just created Adam, the man,
Yeah, then he took a rib bone.
a rib bone. Right. Where were we? And of course, where were we? Do you want to start it, or do you want me to start, or Annie, do you want to start reading?
I just wanted to point out that I think it's on Friday nights or on Shabbat when we well, just before we read it, like right over here, like all this. I mean, right here, you know, this. Vaychulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tziva'am v'chal Elohim bayom hashvi'i malchuto asher asa vayishbot bayom hashvi'i mikol milachto asher asa. I think we read that like in the Mishkan Tefillah book, and like on Friday nights. Like I think when we do the Kiddush, I'm almost positive, like as we talk about it Shabbat on the seventh day, God. But
Right.
anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But there isn't a lot on that either, is there? Michael, you are the most recent student. Have you picked up some of this? You have answers?
For which one? For Adam and Eve?
Well, yeah, and Lilith.
Oh, Lilith. I just know certain things that I've seen online, and I haven't really read the story.
But nobody even says what really happened to her.
Right. I mean, I do think it's more Talmud and descriptions that were done there, and also people technically say that these two creation stories are kind of a mix of two different tribes of people that might
Different
have been
themes,
Hebrew.
actually.
Yeah, two different belief systems that kind of came together because, in fact, if Michael Zeischer were here, he would explain it totally because of the words that they use for God, Elohim versus the holy word Adonai. And
you don't get the story yet. In the other one, you get the story about him taking the rib, said that the man shouldn't be alone and needed a companion.
Yes.
Here you just hear that he created them and said,
right. So
Kind of interesting, though. You sort of wonder what prompted it.
Right, and the other thing too that every time we read it, it's always like, wow. Well, when one of the first things God creates is, as a living creature, the big sea serpent creatures.
Yeah.
And it's like that's the first thing He creates. Well, to me, it's like, well, that sounds like a dinosaur, because we have the knowledge of dinosaurs, and so it's like, then these days must have been like maybe centuries or eons of time built into them because of the way we think about time now. It's like, wow, this could be a long time. And then, as we know, the flood that comes up in Noah, that must have been another huge expanse of time, because how could humans get so bad so quick? I always think like there was another huge expanse of time, because then they started getting lower, and I'm sure they built the pyramids before it, and then because no one can still figure out the pyramids, and I know that you're a big pyramid fan too, Myrna.
if you look at the generations, if you look at the lineage, that's told like at the end of Bereshit, going from there to Noah.
Yeah.
So it's a number of generations. I mean, but probably not like as many as you would think, though. Still,
Not quite enough.
Right.
To go from sea monsters to humans.
Yeah.
You talk about dinosaurs. I don't visualize dinosaurs, maybe because anytime I've seen drawn pictures of the story of Genesis, you'll see like it's the serpent coming down with an evil thing, coming out of its mouth. Look, and it doesn't look like a dinosaur. It looks like a miserable serpent.
Exactly.
Yuck. Anyways, interesting.
Yeah, let's get to that part. I can't hardly wait for the serpent. Let's go. Would you want to read, Annie?
I'm okay. You can read, Mike.
Oh, okay. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. hello, and ceased from all the creative work that God had chosen to do. Yismechu malatutuka shomre 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 Shabbat. All right.
How did we start to sing?
All right. This is the Chronicle. All right. Now it feels like this is another beginning, right? This is the Chronicle of heaven and earth when they were created on the day God eternal made earth and heaven.
And remember that the word, right, the second word. Now here it says in the English that this is the Chronicle of heaven and earth.
Yeah.
And here it has the word toldot, which is generations, right here.
Ooh, toldot.
Elet toldot hashemayim v'ha'aretz. These are the generations.
But that's
So the
not
English
really the
doesn't-
same word.
It isn't. It never
Yeah.
really matches up exactly. But toldot,
Mm-hmm.
toldot is generations.
I like
Could mean,
generations.
yeah, generations could be all kind of things, right? All kind of.
You know, it
Yeah.
just, and it could be any number of things. Chronicle sounds like a book.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. That's interesting. Thanks for pointing that out, Gary.
So we're going to change the wording of the
Yeah.
Bible.
These are the generations of heaven and earth when they were
Right.
created on the day God the Eternal made earth and heaven. No shrub of the field was yet on the earth. No plant of the field had yet sprung up. For God the Eternal had not poured rain down upon the earth, and there was not a soul to till the soil. Though a flow would emerge from the earth and water the surface of the soil, water being the verb, then God Eternal fashioned the man, dust from the soil, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, so that the man became a living being. That's dust to dust. How do we say it?
Ashes to
Ashes
ashes.
to
Scary.
Dust.
To dust shalt thou return.
Yes. To the east, God planted a garden in Eden, setting the man there whom God had formed. Then out of the soil, God Eternal grew trees, alluring to the eye and good for fruit. And in the middle of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of all knowledge. A river went forth from Eden to water the garden. From there, it divided and became 4 branches. The first was named Pishon. That one flows around the land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is fine. Bdellium is there, an onyx stone. The second was named Gihon. That one flows around the land of Cush. The third was named Tigris. That one flows east of Assyria. And the fourth river is the Euphrates.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Tigris and Euphrates, we learned about those in geography and when we were kids. They're still around.
They're very old too, aren't they? They must be old.
Yeah.
So God Eternal took the man, placing him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. God Eternal then commanded the man, saying, "You may eat all you like of every tree in the garden." Okay, now let me point out one thing. Who does he tell this to? Just the man. He just tells the man.
Because the woman's she isn't created yet.
She's not created yet, right? So the man has this knowledge. We don't know if God said it separately to her, but it seems like the man should have told the woman. I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there, floating it out there. It's just an interpretation. God Eternal said, "You may eat all you like of every tree in the garden, but of the tree of all knowledge you may not eat, for the moment you eat of it, you shall be doomed to die." Then God Eternal considered, "It is not good that the man be alone. I will make him a helpmate." So God Eternal formed the wild animals and the birds of the sky out of the soil and brought the man to see what he would call each one. And whatever the man called it, that became the creature's name. The man gave names to every domestic animal and to the birds of the sky and to all the wild animals, but for himself, the man, Adam, found no helpmate, no person, no partner. Then throwing the man into a profound slumber so that he slept, God Eternal took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in that place. Now God Eternal built up that rib taken from the man into a woman and brought her to the man. And the man said, oh, this time, bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh, let this one be called woman, for this is the one for me. For this one, okay, it doesn't say that. For this one is taken from man. Okay, I just embellished a little bit.
You think?
So, so it is that a man will leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they become one flesh. And there's the cycle of life all wrapped up in 2 or 3 words, 2 or 3 sentences. The man will leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and they will then have children of their own, and they become one flesh, and they go on, and the children have one. It's just unbelievable. It's beautiful.
I think it's interesting that there are 2 trees.
Yeah.
The tree of life and the tree of knowledge.
Knowledge, right.
Right.
It doesn't tell you can't. What's on the tree of life?
What is the tree? I think the question could be, just posing the question, what is the tree of life?
Yeah.
Because it says it in Proverbs. In Proverbs, it says the Torah is a tree of life.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
The Torah is a tree of life. It's almost like, as Gary says, we're kind of brought into this world as like, dude. And
No, but
it's
you're
like,
right.
you gotta get there.
This is the tree of life. You're right. And we have, you can't, do not forsake it.
Right. And it's if you all who hold fast will find it to be fruitful.
I never made that connection.
Yeah.
But the other one's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So if the Torah is the tree of life, how do you know
The
Torah?
Torah does teach you good and evil, though.
Good and evil.
Well, they ate from the apple, and then that was boom. That knowledge just got downloaded. That was
and God knew, because they were naked, and they realized they were naked, and they went and hid. And so it was very obvious that they had sinned.
God said, "Get your clothes on and get the hell out of here."
Yeah, right. That's just about it.
Cooked them and they took.
But it said that God made them clothes before they left, though, didn't it? I think, yeah.
Did it?
No,
yeah. Yes,
I
that's
think
right.
I thought they made it themselves.
Something. Yeah. I think he fashioned it. Yeah, he fashioned it for him. Does anyone else want to read it? Do you want to go on, or do you want me to go on?
And I was going to point out something that we didn't read yet, but we didn't find out how Adam might have relayed to Eve, but Eve did tell the serpent that they weren't supposed to eat it. So somewhere in there, you could imply that Adam must have told her.
Yeah, the woman.
Well, yeah, and the serpent said, "Oh, what are you listening to him for?
Right.
He's just keeping you from it." But
But you won't die. That's the thing. That's the word that it hinges on, right? It's like God says you will die.
Yeah, you won't.
But there will be something that dies. I think. I thought that's
innocence.
The way I look at it. Yeah, the
innocence.
Their innocence.
Innocence dies, right?
Yeah, and they become their eyes open.
Painless childbirth.
What's that?
Painless childbirth dies.
Yeah, I know. And they're not giving you any sort of a what do you call it? Oh, geez. No pain medication.
Oh, yeah.
Those.
Now the 2 of them were naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed. Of all the wild animals that God eternal had made, the serpent was the most cunning. And it said to the woman, "Did God really say you may not eat of any tree in the garden?" And the woman said to the serpent, "Of any tree in the garden we may eat the fruit, but God said, of the fruit of the tree in the middle of it, do not eat, and do not even touch it, or you will die." But the serpent said to the woman, I think I'm like looking for, but you have the control here. But the serpent said to the woman, you most certainly will not die. On the contrary, God knows that when you do eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like gods, knowing all things. So when the woman saw how good to eat the tree's fruit would be, and how alluring to the eyes it was, and how desirable the insight was that the tree would bring, she took some of its fruit and ate. And then she gave some to her man who was with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and realizing that they were naked, they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves skirts. At the breezy time of day, in the heat of the afternoon, they heard the sound of God Eternal walking about in the garden. And the man and his woman hid themselves from God Eternal among the trees. But God Eternal called out to the man, saying, "Where are you?" And he said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. So I hid myself." Then God said, "Who told you that you were naked? Did you eat the fruit of the tree that I forbade you to eat?" And the man said, "The woman whom you gave me, she gave me the fruit of the tree, so I ate." God Eternal then said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" And the woman said, "The serpent tricked me into eating it." Then God the Eternal said to the serpent, "Because you did this, you, out of all the beasts, all the wild animals are under a curse. On your belly shall you crawl, eating dust all the days of your life. And between you and the woman, and between her and seed and your seed, I am setting enmity.
Oh, bad, bad.
They shall strike at your head, and you shall strike at their heel. And to the woman, God said, I am doubling and redoubling your pains of pregnancy. Oh, with pain shall you bear children, yet your craving shall be for your man, and he shall govern you. Oh, hard to say, hard to read. Now the man, God said, because you hearkened to your wife and ate of the tree about which I commanded you, saying, do not eat of it. The soil is now cursed on your account. Only through pain shall you eat of it as long as you live. It shall sprout thorns and thistles for you. And when you would eat the plants, of the field, by the sweat of your brow shall you eat bread till you return to the earth, that earth that you were taken from. For dust you are, and to dust you shall return. The man called his wife's name Eve, for she would be the mother of all the living. And God Eternal made outfits out of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. There it is. God Eternal then said, look, the humans are like us, knowing all things. Now they may even reach out to take fruit from the tree of life and eat it and live forever. Live forever by eating the tree of life. Oh, that's another good. You know, actually, I gotta be very honest with you, because remember that guy Rabbi Foreman, who does those great drawing videos?
Oh yeah.
He has one about the tree of life and about how there's a sword that comes up, and that's kind of where this idea that I got. I can't say, I gotta be honest and tell you that I have a little cheat sheet. So he's
Well, we're still impressed.
Thanks. So the eternal God drove them out of the Garden of Eden to work the soil from which they had been taken. And the question I have, that's okay. The question I have too is, like, God is talking to people who or beings that aren't, I mean, there's one God, but he's talking to, saying they're going to be like us. I'm wondering who is he talking to like that?
God is not like single, like, because when God made man in God's image, it's male and female. That's what I always thought. Just in the sense that, you know, the whole idea of creation, it's the way that humans reproduce. God had the ability to do, you know what I mean?
To duplicate.
The combined force of both. That's why great. God, to me, doesn't have a gender. God is both.
Yeah.
You know,
androgynous.
That's awesome.
Not so much androgynous, but the opposing forces together, the combined that create us. Like, you know, that started the process, and then we continue it. Be fruitful and multiply.
I like it because I do like that continual.
Like God creates like
continual expansion of God's love, God's being, God's purpose. I do like
we're partners in creation.
There's things in Job and that talk about, like, in other parts of the Bible, that talk about like almost a hierarchy of beings, and like the angels and the archangels and things like that, that the cherubs and all that are like celestial kind of beings. So like I always kind of pictured God talking to them in that passage, you know, like they've become one of us. They've become above man. Like if they get that tree of knowledge, if they get that the life, then they become angels or archangels, or, you know, obviously not God, because God's ruling over all, but
Yeah, that's
I just
awesome.
thought it was like part of that. It's almost like there's a council or something in certain parts of the, particularly of what the Hebrew Bible, as opposed to the New Testament. A lot about the hierarchy of the angels and things.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot, right? Because we never get a description of when God created the angels, right? It's always like they're just there.
Yeah.
The archangel Michael, just there. Gabriel, just there. He's just there.
And doesn't Michael have to be like, isn't part of waiting for the Messiah, isn't Michael, the archangel, supposed to signify to the Jewish people when the Messiah comes? Isn't that part of it?
I think so. I thought it might have been Elijah.
Probably you guys that are Jewish should be answering that as opposed
Yeah,
to
right.
me. I don't know where I read that, but I had read that the
You know,
archangel was supposed to be.
one of the few first places though we hear about angels is Jacob.
Mhm.
Remember, he
Right.
has the argument, the fisticuffs kind of thing, and that's when his name got changed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And Jacob was always talking to angels, always like communicating beyond. That's where I believe Israel comes from. The people of God came right from Jacob. It was just this oneness, this breakthrough, this absolute, like, it was huge. And then that's the 12 tribes, right?
But isn't, to me, it's so strange that you don't hear anything about angels, and all of a sudden they're angels. So where did they come from? You know, it started out with God was by himself, and now it looks like God has company, but we didn't know about it.
Here, can you read the Hebrew on 24? Because mine
yeah.
says, after he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden
Right.
cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way of the tree of life.
Right.
So there's the cherubim are in the creation story, but it
You want me
doesn't
to
show
read it in
anything
Hebrew?
in that on 24. So I'm just wondering if it's came out in translation, or if
It says it right there, I think, doesn't it? Stationing cherubim.
No, but it's true. So
oh, cherubim, yeah, it is there. Cherubim to the east of Eden.
Right. But it some comes out of nowhere. I mean, we make day and night and all this other, but where the heck did the cherubim come from?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
I
why
know,
that's why I think there's a group of people left out of the story.
That's right.
But is that cherubim with a capital? Is that like a place, or does that mean like
little angels?
Angelic?
Yeah,
I was thinking
with the
Gary would know what the
wings.
word is.
Yeah,
right below. Yeah, Gary.
right here. The word
Yeah, cherubim.
hakruvim. Right here, hakruvim
Hakruvim.
is the word for cherubim.
And if you look at the bottom of the page too, it has
they're winged like angels.
Right.
Legendary
but the cherubim
winged
are more like children. They're little.
the flaming
little
sword
things.
Sacred spaces.
Right.
who protects Seg. Yeah, the flaming sword may represent bolts of lightning, and
now
so
that's interesting.
yeah, so the sword protects the tree of life.
Well, that's why you'll never be able to find it, Michael. Don't even bother looking.
I'm looking for the tree of life.
The first lasers. The first
Right.
laser protection. You know, can't you just picture it? The tree of life with all the
Right.
blue lights over it, and you touch it, and it, you know.
First of all, nobody's ever going to find it. You know, really, let's forget that. But it is interesting that all of a sudden these, and this has legendary winged beings.
Yeah.
Right.
That's kind of a sort of like, you know, do we really believe this? That this is what they
Legendary.
say? That's a little bit confusing too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Gary, what do you make of that?
Excuse me?
Well, it talks about cherubim being the legendary winged beings. So it's
Yep.
that it's like this came, where did it come from? All of a sudden, we've got cherubim that are legendary. I mean, in other words, that's the explanation. They're legendary winged beings. It's like they're made up. Do they really exist?
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
Can we? Yeah.
They're introduced without any, you know, like God decided we needed cherubim.
Right. But also, there's no star. Are there stars? Because we know of the two big lights in the sky, the sun and the moon. But does he say stars? I don't know.
Doesn't the light spill out? Isn't that the stars?
That could
I
be
thought
the-
it said something about after like the star. I thought didn't it
Star.
say something about that?
I have to go
remember.
back and I can't.
Yeah.
I can't make this go
He also
back.
made the stars right after the lesser light to govern the night. He also made
Right.
the stars. God
Wow.
set them in the expanse of the sky to give light to the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate
Yep.
the light from the darkness.
That's good. That's it. All right, Cain and Abel. Who would like to read Cain and Abel? Have you read yet, Annie?
No, that's okay.
Forward.
Man-
Are we at 4? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The man now was intimate with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain, saying, "Both I and the Eternal have made a man." She then continued, giving birth to his brother Abel. Abel became a shepherd, while Cain tilled the soil. One day in the course of time, Cain brought some of his harvest as an offering to the Eternal, and Abel too brought an offering from among the choice lambs of his flock in their fattest parts. The Eternal approved Abel and his offering, but did not approve Cain and his offering. Cain was filled with rage, his face fell. The Eternal One then said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? Why your face fallen? Would you not do well to lift it? For if you do not do well, sin is a demon at the door. You are the one it craves, and yet you can govern it." Cain now thought about his brother Abel. Then, when they were in the field, Cain turned on his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Eternal One said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" And he replied, "How should I know? Am I my brother's keeper?" And God said, "What have you done? Your brother's blood is shrieking to me from the ground. Now you are cursed by this very soil, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hands. When you till the soil, no longer shall it give you its yield. You shall become a rootless wanderer on the earth." Cain then said to the Eternal One, "My punishment is too heavy to bear. Seeing as now you have expelled me from the face of the soil, and I must hide from your face, I am become a rootless wanderer on the earth, and anyone who finds me might kill me." "Not so," said the Eternal One. "Should anyone kill Cain, he would be avenged sevenfold." And the Eternal gave Cain a sign, that none who came upon him would kill him. Cain then went away from before the Eternal and settled in the land of nomads east of Eden. Cain was then intimate with his wife, who became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. He became the founder of a city, and he named the city after his son Enoch.
Can we hang on for a second? Can we hang on for
Yeah.
1 second?
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to me. Can we go back to the Abel's offering? This is absolutely amazing because I'd never really noticed this before, and I was reading something about this. When
Section,
Abel,
where was that?
yeah, it's right there. It's right. You got it. It's right there
Okay.
on number
There it is.
4.
That's right.
So why does the Eternal not like Cain's offering? This just kind of I came across this, and it's absolutely stunning because it is here. It's right here. Why
It
do you
doesn't
think?
explain why. It doesn't explain why.
Aren't you supposed to remove the fat?
No,
Well,
that's supposed to be for God. That's supposed to smoke on the fire. You're not supposed to eat the fat or the blood.
So, right? Isn't it supposed to go to God? Like
that's
it's
right.
not his offering; it's his, right?
I think you're absolutely right. I think because I just saw this, and I'm surprised. I've never noticed this before. And I was reading something about this, and I was like, "What? That's in what I was reading." And it says it right here: the choice lambs of his flock.
Right. And
Abel
Cain
gave
just
the
brought the,
best. Yes.
Cain just took the offering. He never said, oh, look at this. This carrot is great. This
Right.
celery is terrific. I'm giving these the best of to God.
Right. Cain
And I-
gave just some harvest, some of his harvest.
Right.
Could care less. Here's my harvest. And then, but Abel was like, I got the choice lambs. I got the best of the flock, the fattest parts. And it's almost like this is the first religious war. Like Cain's jealous of Abel's relationship with God. God likes Cain's choice stuff. So if Cain could have, or Abel's choice stuff, I'm sorry, it's late.
Right.
But it's like, oh my gosh, if Cain just picked out the best, he'd be in there right with God, and God's, telling him, look at where you.
That is an interesting thing. It's that Cain didn't put any thought into what he gave God. He just took it. Whereas Abel really gave it some thought. I'm giving you the very best that I have. But I can't imagine that God would have been that picky on this.
I do.
You think there was
Good point.
No, I think there was more to this that we're privy to. I really do think so. I think that Cain must have been a pain in the rear end.
I wanted
Go
to
ahead,
say,
Gary. Yeah, go, Gary.
There are times in the Torah, like when questions are asked that the answers are known to, like when God at first asks, when he comes into the Garden of Eden, where are you?
Right.
Like God knows where they are. Usually, like when that question is being asked, it's before something big is going to happen. Like after this happens, like they're going to be leaving the Garden of Eden. Everything's going to change. In here, God asked Cain, where is your brother? Am I my brother's keeper? Like
That's
God doesn't know
very
where
famous.
he is.
Mhm.
Right, and then Cain's getting ready. God says, now you won't get any yield from your, and you see what I mean?
But I was surprised. he
It's
was
like
given
also
white.
like when Moses, when God asks, what is that in your hand? When he's holding the staff. When Jacob is wrestling with the angel,
Right.
what is your name? Like with the staff, Moses is getting ready to lead the people to prove God's, when the staff changes into a serpent or whatever, showing the power. Jacob is going to become Yisrael,
Mhm.
There's always but it's just these are like a couple of those questions are in this portion.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
But do you know what is interesting? It isn't a life for a life. If it were a life for a life, then Cain would have been dead. But now, because he has to wander and everybody's going to look at him, he's got that mark of Cain. This is a worse punishment. But I am surprised that God gives him a wife and a child.
I'm surprised that, like the Torah says, if there were witnesses to the murder, I don't know if anybody saw Cain getting killed, because if anybody witnessed it, then he should have been put to death. God doesn't put him to death. I guess if God's the only
But
witness,
he makes
it's
him
okay.
suffer. Every day he has to think
Yeah.
about what he did.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a great point, Gary. I've never thought about that. If there was a witness, he might have had to die. Oh my God.
Yeah, because we're told that if there's
Incredible.
2 or more witnesses,
That's incredible.
Except that killing him would have been too easy.
Hmm.
This is like dangling him for the rest of his life.
Oh, for Cain, right. Cain's
Yeah.
punishment. Yeah, your point is Cain's
Absolutely.
punishment is worse than death.
Absolutely.
well, that's like if you were going to spend life in prison, it's probably worse than getting the death penalty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you could be sentenced immediately and not wait 20 years, you would choose that rather than
Right.
Yeah, you know.
But I still love the offering part. This part really gets me because it really shows, like, especially in our Judaic Christian background, how important that offering is, even for our churches today, as our church struggles to get through payroll. It's like this offering, and it's always, and right off the bat too, there's no offering of children to a beastly god, or there's no human sacrifices. It's a very specific sacrifice. You work and then you give the best portion to God. It's like, I can't even believe how often that comes up, and it starts right here in the 4th chapter of Genesis. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me. And I mean, this is something like I've read this over and over again, and now it's really starting to take root, like in a way that I just never read it before. Like, this
When you
is
think
Genesis.
about when they talk about all the ritual sacrifices, it's always, you know, in the first year without blemish.
Right.
You know,
You
it
know,
always has to be a red heifer or heifer, whatever. You know,
Right.
it has to be
Right.
perfect with.
Do you know what could have been worse than anything? That if Cain's children were born with the mark of Cain,
Mm-hmm.
that would be
If they had to
awful.
suffer like that.
Well, it would have been interesting though, and then Cain himself would have realized that this is never going to go away.
Right.
I've
Right.
done something wrong. So God was nicer to him. But it is interesting to think about that. Can you imagine all those little Cains being born?
I think it's interesting in 7 that sin is personified.
Is a demon.
Sin
Yeah.
is a demon. Sin is a demon. It craves you,
Wow.
but you can control it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You can govern it. I
This
think
is
that
really
that's
interesting.
really, like, isn't that the crux of all of it, is that that's our free will.
That's
That
right.
those are the forces of good and evil that
Yeah.
is
Choose-
the eternal struggle, right? The eternal
Right.
battle.
Choose in Deuteronomy. Choose this day I put before you
Right.
good and evil. Choose thou.
You know what I just
Right.
decided? We are very good because we are like the Talmud Torah people. We are taking this thing that we're studying these things. We're actually translating them, reinterpreting them. This is just like the only difference is that we're speaking in English and reading in English. Seriously,
struggle.
think
The
about it.
struggle continues.
I
Okay,
think that's a plus for us.
I think so too. The funniest thing is like Alba has all these little things in the house, like these little trinkets, and there was a nice little like kind of a trinket where it's like a family setting, and they're sitting around the fireplace and they're reading a book, and it says like
Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian. Miniatures, like in a miniature form.
Oh, I love those.
And it's the family sitting around a fireplace, and it says the great American pastime, and they're reading a book. It was obviously done in the 1800s. So when I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is our Torah study. This is what we do on Monday nights or Wednesday nights, depending. But it's like we are doing something that's like thousands of years old, except we're doing it on Zoom because of the pandemic. It's like just sitting around reading and talking about it. It's like the best. It's the best. Who knew it was the best? Well, when you're reading Torah, you know, it's like
Sebastians are still made.
Sebastians are still made.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in Marblehead, actually, from the molds. And every so often you get, like, St. John's Prep had
Oh, I'm gonna go downstairs. Go ahead. I'm gonna go downstairs and get it. So funny.
oh dear.
Go, keep going, Myrna.
No, it's just, I was just saying that they're very famous and they're very beautifully done, very detailed.
I
So-
have 2 of them.
Don't you love them?
Yes. I absolutely love little trinkets like that.
I had one that somebody had given my husband. It was the doctor, with children. And unfortunately, when he passed away, they packed his stuff up and they threw that in and lost part of its top, which is,
Oh,
I know it. Well, c'est la vie.
Oh.
All right, what did you just pull up?
so then
This is it. This is
Nice.
and it says America Remembers, family reads aloud. So there's a family
Oh, yeah.
sitting by the fireplace, and
And
dad
the
is
children,
reading.
look at that.
Yeah,
That's
the children.
beautifully done.
Yeah, it is.
So you go on eBay. This is $120
Yeah.
at Alva's eBay.
What does it say on the book?
On the book.
Yeah, look, the front of it, there's some kind of a medallion or something on it.
That's a good one. That's a good question.
You
I
see-
don't know. It doesn't.
see,
It's so
or is that a
tiny.
name or a title on the book itself?
I
Yeah,
don't
right.
know if you could
We-
see it.
I can see it this way. See that?
It's like a little mark. I don't. Yeah, it's. I don't think you. It's hard for me to read.
Yeah,
But it-
but it's definitely blue with something in the middle of it.
Say
Oh, that-
Mishkan Tefillah. Oh,
Yeah, that's. and then this guy, and this guy's got a yarmulke on.
Tanakh.
You'll have to take a magnifying glass and check it out.
Yes, exactly. But it
We
says
expect an
America
answer the
Remembers,
next time.
family reads aloud. That's like awesome. And it's like
Mike.
I saw this and I'm like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing when we do the Torah. This is exactly it.
The thing we're doing at Tab on Sunday, the version that Jess has is respectful of the Hebrew names and the Hebrew traditions and things like that. It's so it doesn't say God, it says Yahweh, and it says
Oh, right.
like a lot of it because she's very like that Christians use certain things to be kind of anti-Semitic without knowing we're being anti-Semitic, and so it was a really interesting version of that. So we're gonna be being introduced to that, and one of the gentlemen was like saying something. He was new, and he was like, "Oh, well, I think like maybe I shouldn't say the," and he was like basically saying like that Judaism is the foundation, and that it's not just the background of Christ, it's also the background of all religion. Like it's the driving force of all religion, and it's ancient, and it needs to be. It's not just the foreshadow of Jesus for us. It's the foundation of God
Right.
giving the world. So, and he was like, well, I didn't want to say that in case you people were like, not thinking that way. And I'm like, we're probably the most Jewish Christian congregation ever.
But you know what, Annie? It all says one thing: respect.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's right. And honor that history, and honor the traditions. It's really so important to hold to hold up those traditions, even if it's not our own tradition. Hold up that tradition. It's like that's what I think America's about, really.
And honor that every person's path doesn't have to be the same.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Your
That
relationship
religion
with God
doesn't
is your relationship with God. End it.
Yeah,
End
exactly.
it. You don't need to judge anybody else's or tell anybody else how to do it or anything like that, because it's your
But
relationship. with
you
God.
know what? It's almost like saying, well, you go back to Hillel's golden rule. Do unto others what you would have others do unto you. This is what is this? Tell me, well, I hold one foot up and just stand on one foot. Tell me the essence of Torah. Isn't that what they,
exactly.
and then he says that.
Yes, whatever you don't want done to you, don't do to others. That's essentially it.
And really, that's the essence of it,
Golden rule, right?
except for Cain.
Well, people make bad choices.
Yeah.
Let's just face it.
Ah,
Whew. All right,
I'm
we're almost through.
exhausted. We've had a very exhausting night.
Does anyone want? Do you want to keep going, Annie?
I don't care. I will.
17.
Cain then was intimate with his wife, who became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. He became the founder of the city, and he named the city after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Arad, and Arad begot Mahail, and Mahail begot Metushael, and Metushael begot Lamech. And you can correct all these words, Gare. Lamech took 2 wives. One was named Ada, and the other named Zillah. Ada bore Jabal. He was the progenitor of tent dwellers and herders. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the progenitor of all who play the lute and the long flute. As for Zillah, she too bore Tubal-Cain, a smith, progenitor of every artisan who makes copper and iron tools. And Naamah was Tubal-Cain's sister. Now Lamech said to his wives Ada and Zillah, "Hearken to me, wives of Lamech. Give ear to my speech. Because of my bruise, I've slain a man. Because of my wound, a lad. Cain is avenged 7-fold, and Lamech 77. Adam once again was intimate with his wife, and she bore a son and gave him the name Seth. Since God has given me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain had slain him. As for Seth, to him too was born a son, and he named him Enosh. Then it was that the people began to evoke the eternal. This is the written record of the human's line from the day God created human beings, making them in the likeness of God, creating them male and female, blessing them, and naming them humans on the day they were created. Adam had lived 130 years when he begot in his likeness after his image, and he named him Seth. After begetting Seth, Adam lived 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. The years of Adam's life came to 930. Then he died.
We can probably skip through this a
Yeah, I
lot.
was going to say, it just goes on now, the
Yeah,
lineage. so you
Begot,
get to
begot,
tomorrow.
begot.
Stop begetting.
A lot of people
Right.
begot stuff.
Let's see, wait a second. Where do we, let's see, no, the baby.
Yeah, that's-
Lamech,
I think
Lamech
that's
went to 182 years.
Oh, there it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
so how
When the
great is
Eternal saw how
wickedness?
great was the wickedness of human beings on the earth, that the direction of their thoughts was nothing but wicked all the time, the Eternal regretted having made human beings on earth and was heartsick. So the Eternal thought, I will wipe the humans whom I created from off the face of the earth, the humans, and with them the beasts, the reptiles, the birds of the sky, for I rue the day I made them. But Noah found favor in the Eternal's sight.
Well, so Noah was born in that last probably paragraph somewhere.
And no, we don't know when he was born. It just says that Noah,
No, I think it might have said it in the previous
Oh.
page.
Isn't he begot?
Noah lived.
I don't know, but he gave them long procreation
Lamech, yeah.
abilities. Jeez.
He begot a son. So Noah was Lamech's son, and Lamech had the problem that Cain had because Lamech killed somebody. And then
God.
Noah lived 500 years. He begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
I thought Methuselah is supposed to be the oldest. We've got some older than Methuselah here.
Do we? Oh, 1,000 years. Yeah, 900
Yeah.
years.
Is there a different Methuselah?
How old was Methuselah?
I thought some of these
let's
are older.
see. Where was it? Let's see. Oh,
They're usually like
187.
962.
It says Methuselah lived 187 years when he begot Lamech.
969.
969.
an altar
Oh,
caca.
well, maybe that's.
Maybe that is the oldest because 962 is Jared.
I didn't go all the way to that big number. God, these people were really.
And then there were giants too. Didn't in the previous page, Gary, didn't it say the Nephilim were there?
Oh, yeah.
I think
Number
so.
4.
Yeah, the Nephilim were on the earth in those days.
And then then this is when God said, "We're not going to make man live 900 years." The Eternal One says, "My spirit will not forever endure the humans, as they are but fallible flesh. Their lifespan shall only be 120 years." And then the next sentence, the Nephilim, which were like giants, were on the earth in those days. And afterward too, when the divine beings, this whole just this verse alone has got like, it just lets the imagination run wild. Then the divine beings mated with the human women. They bore for them those heroes, those great people of old, from whom they enjoyed great renown. What does that mean? What is
Does it say
this?
anything here? Divine
Wait.
beings. Here you go.
Yeah.
This
Oh, yeah.
passage is likely a myth. Oh, mythic.
Could be the Greek
Translated as
gods,
sons
right?
of God.
Yeah, this is wild.
There you
The
go.
Greek myths. Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Mythic fragments. It just
I've been
tickles
mortal.
your imagination, doesn't it? It's just like, what does that mean? What the heck is going on here? It's so
And
wild.
every time you look at it, like every year you read the same thing, and there's always something else that
Yes,
kind of
yeah,
jumps
there
out.
is. There's always something that catches your eye. And
Yeah, it might be
question
something small, but it still alters and adds to, you know.
It's awesome.
You
It's
know
so
what's
awesome.
interesting? We don't hear anything about illnesses that we inherited as we, as generations kept living and maybe intermingling and intermarrying. I don't know, but we have an awful lot of crazy illnesses that have come up.